The date of September the 11th stands as an internationally known date in world history as it recalls one of the most important and talked about attacks on American soil. Throughout the years, the US government mourns and receives the sympathies from other nations in honor of those who lost their lives in the World Trade Center attacks. However, in Latin America, this date marks the anniversary of the beginning of what would be one of the most dark and hurtful periods in the history of the continent, that of the Chilean coup d'etat. Interestingly enough, the real causes of this dreadful event are lesser known to the general public. In fact, you may even be wondering what this has to do with United States history. To understand the link, you have to look at one precise individual, named Richard Nixon. Richard Milhous Nixon was born in California and became the 36th President of the United States from 1953 to 1961. As expected from a Republican president, his foreign policy was based on modern imperialism that would uphold United States' interest over the rights of other nations. But what sparked Nixon's interest in Chile and the political situation there? It all begins in 1970 when socialist candidate Salvador Allende is democratically elected as president of Chile. For the Chilean people, this is the promise of a Chile that will develop more equally and that will offer more services to the working class. However, this directly contradicts the US company's interests, who, at the time, were in Latin America in the mission of making profit. As a consequence, Richard Nixon states his fear that Chile will become the new Cuba. Thus, Nixon began meeting with his Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, in order to spark what would be a thorough campaign of misinformation and foreign intervention to burden Allende in Chile and to protect the United States' interests. However, this was done in an undercover manner as to minimize the international community's reaction. In a telephone call recording, which was leaked years later after the end of the dictatorship, Nixon can be heard reminding his Secretary of State, "Our hand doesn't show on this one," meaning the United States' role in overthrowing the democratic government of Allende should remain of the highest secrecy. The ways in which Nixon led the US intervention are diverse. To begin with, he would create a propaganda campaign that would aim at separate the Chilean population and to spark inner conflict and tensions. In doing so, Nixon succeeded in creating an appropriate environment for the establishment of Pinochet's fascist dictatorship. Subsequently, the United States sent millions of dollars to anti-Allende institutions and media resources who would tarnish his reputation. Additionally, it was later revealed that CIA undercover agents were sent along the Pinochet troops to plan and support the coup d'etat. The operation culminated on September 11, 1973, when the armed forces led by right-wing Augusto Pinochet encircled the President Palace and captured Allende, who committed suicide in the face of imminent death. Following the coup d'etat, thousands of Chilean citizens would be arbitrarily arrested and taken to the National Stadium in Santiago, where many would be shot immediately. Decades of political oppression thus followed, in which anyone who could be slightly suspected of disagreeing with right-wing policies would be immediately arrested, tortured, and never seen or heard of again. Even today, thousands of Chilean families mourn the disappearance and the death of their loved ones, without any reparation or information on where their corpses were taken and what the conditions of their death was. Unmistakably, Nixon's intervention had long-lasting effects which still hold great effects today in Chile. In fact, the US intervention did not stop at the coup d'etat. It remained throughout the years by the application of new neoliberal economic policies which have now made of Chile what some call the most privatized country in the world. Thus, by organizing a social, financial, and military intervention, Richard Nixon succeeded in imposing the United States company's interest in Latin America at the expense of Chilean sovereignty and democracy.